Lonely highway, darkest night. Jack drove. The engine hummed. Headlights cut through the darkness. Miles stretched, empty and cold. He was alone. Hours blurred. Fatigue gnawed at him. He needed fuel. For the car. For himself. Then he saw it. A light in the distance. A gas station. Isolated. Eerie. But a beacon nonetheless. Jack steered towards it. Hope mixed with unease. A beacon in the blackness. The gas station stood alone, a solitary beacon of light in an ocean of darkness. Its neon sign flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows on the deserted pavement. The night was still, almost unnaturally so, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The gas station was an island of light in a sea of black. It seemed to float untethered in the vast expanse of the night. The surrounding darkness was thick, almost tangible, pressing in from all sides. It was as if the gas station was the last outpost of civilization, standing defiantly against the encroaching void, surrounded by darkness, swallowed by silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the neon sign, a constant, almost comforting presence in the oppressive quiet. The sky above was a deep, impenetrable black, dotted with distant stars that seemed to mock the gas station's feeble attempt at illumination. Only the hum of the neon sign broke the quiet. It was a lonely sound, echoing in the emptiness. The sign's glow was harsh, almost unnatural, casting long, distorted shadows that danced on the ground. It was a beacon, yes, but also a warning, a reminder of the isolation, the desolation. The air turned cold. A shiver ran down Jack's spine. He pulled his jacket tighter around him, trying to ward off the chill. The cold was biting, seeping into his bones. It was the kind of cold that made you feel small, insignificant. The kind of cold that made you question why you were out here in the first place. He pulled up to a pump. The engine's rumble died away, leaving an even deeper silence in its wake. The gas station seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Jack hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the door handle. The silence was oppressive, almost suffocating. It was as if the night itself was watching, waiting to see what he would do next. The smell of gasoline was strong, overpowering. It filled his nostrils, sharp and acrid. It was a familiar smell, but out here in the middle of nowhere, it seemed out of place. It was a reminder of civilization, of the world he had left behind. But it was also a reminder of the danger, the volatility. One spark and this place could go up in flames. He stepped out of his car. The ground was cold beneath his feet, the pavement damp from a recent rain. He could feel the chill seeping through his shoes, numbing his toes. The air was thick with the smell of wet asphalt and gasoline. It was a heady mix, almost intoxicating. But it was also a reminder of the isolation, the desolation. The ground was cold, damp. It clung to his shoes, making each step feel heavy, labored. The darkness pressed in from all sides, a constant, oppressive presence. It was as if the night itself was alive, watching, waiting. Jack could feel its eyes on him, could feel its breath on the back of his neck. He felt uneasy, like he was being watched. Every shadow seemed to hide a pair of eyes, every rustle of the wind a whisper of something unseen. He glanced around, his heart pounding in his chest. The gas station was empty, deserted, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, almost suffocating. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, watching, waiting. But he was alone, or was he? The question echoed in his mind, a constant, nagging doubt. The gas station was empty, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, watching, waiting. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He was alone. He had to be. But the feeling of being watched was impossible to shake. It was as if the night itself was alive, watching, waiting. Eyes like embers. A figure emerged from the shadows. The attendant, tall and gaunt. His face was hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. "Need something?" the attendant rasped. His voice was low, gravelly, like dry leaves rustling in the wind. Jack swallowed. "Just gas." He pointed to the empty gauge. His hand trembled slightly. The attendant's gaze was unsettling, intense. Whispers of the lost. The attendant moved slowly, deliberately, Jack watched him from the side of the car. His eyes fell on the bulletin board. Photos. Dozens of them. Faces stared back at him. Young, old, all missing. A chill ran down his spine. "Strange place for that," Jack mumbled. The attendant didn't respond. He just kept pumping gas. The silence was deafening. Jack felt it again. That feeling of being watched. He turned slowly, scanning the darkness beyond the gas station's light. Empty. Nothing but shadows. He was imagining things. He had to be. But the feeling persisted. It crawled under his skin. He looked back at the attendant. He was staring at him. Those eyes. Cold. Calculating. Like he knew a secret. Jack's secret. The gas pump clicked. Jack jumped, startled by the sudden noise in the stillness of the night. The darkness seemed to press in around him, making every sound more pronounced, more menacing. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat echoing in his ears like a drum. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, making his hands tremble. He fumbled for his wallet, trying to appear calm, but his fingers betrayed him, shaking uncontrollably. He glanced around, the eerie silence of the deserted gas station amplifying his unease. Suddenly, the radio in his car crackled to life, breaking the oppressive silence. The static was loud, almost deafening, filling the car with an unsettling noise. Static. Then, a voice. Faint, whispering. It was barely audible, but it sent a chill down his spine. He strained to hear, his breath hitching in his throat. "Get out! Get out now!" The words were clear, urgent, filled with a sense of dread. Jack's eyes widened in terror, his mind racing. The voice sent shivers down his spine. His blood ran cold and he felt a wave of panic wash over him. He looked around frantically, searching for the source of the voice. He looked at the attendant. He was gone, vanished into thin air. The gas station, once a place of mundane routine, now felt like a scene from a nightmare. Jack's mind raced with questions. Where did the attendant go? Was he in danger? The voice on the radio echoed in his mind, urging him to leave. He didn't need to be told twice. With shaking hands, he started the car, his heart pounding in his chest. As he sped away, the gas station disappeared in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the darkness. The voice still haunted him, a chilling reminder of the night's events. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly escaped something sinister, something beyond his understanding. The road ahead was long and dark, but he was determined to put as much distance as possible between himself and the gas station. The static screams of the radio were a warning he would never forget. Panic surged through him. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, each beat echoing the terror that gripped his soul. The night was thick with an oppressive darkness, and every shadow seemed to whisper threats. He could feel the cold sweat trickling down his back, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The fear was almost palpable, a living entity that wrapped around him, squeezing tighter with every passing second. He threw the money on the ground, the bills fluttering away like fallen leaves. Desperation clawed at him as he jumped into his car, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He fumbled with the keys, his fingers numb and uncooperative. The darkness outside seemed to press in on him, the silence broken only by the sound of his own frantic movements. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching him, judging him. They slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a sound that seemed to echo in the stillness of the night. He cursed under his breath, his fear mounting with each passing second. The keys were just out of reach, mocking him with their proximity. He could almost feel the cold metal against his skin, but his hands refused to cooperate. The darkness seemed to close in around him, suffocating him. He saw them then, figures moving in the darkness. They were barely visible, just shadows against the deeper black of the night. But he knew they were there. He could feel their presence, a cold, malevolent force that sent shivers down his spine. They moved with an eerie grace, their forms shifting and blending with the shadows. He could hear the faint rustle of their movements, a sound that sent chills through his body. Just outside the reach of the light, their eyes glowed, red and malevolent. He grabbed the keys, his fingers finally finding purchase on the cold metal. The eyes seemed to bore into him, filled with a hatred that was almost tangible. He could feel their gaze burning into his soul, a searing heat that made him want to scream. But he couldn't. He had to get away. He had to escape. Jammed them into the ignition. His hands were shaking so badly that it took several tries before the key finally slid into place. He turned it with a desperate twist, praying that the engine would start. The seconds stretched into an eternity, each one filled with the fear that he would be too late. The figures were getting closer, their eyes glowing brighter with each step. The engine roared to life. The sound was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. The headlights cut through the night, illuminating the path ahead. He could see the figures more clearly now, their forms twisted and grotesque. But he didn't care. He had to get away. He had to survive. He slammed the car into gear and sped away. The tires screeched against the pavement, the sound echoing in the still night. He didn't look back. He couldn't. The fear was still there, gnawing at him, but he pushed it aside. He had to focus. He had to get as far away as possible. The night was still dark, but the headlights of his car cut through it, a small beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. He didn't look back. He just drove. The gas station shrinking in his rearview mirror, a beacon of fear in the rearview mirror. The radio crackled again, the same voice. Closer now. You can't escape. It's too late. Then silence. He turned the radio off. His hands trembled. His heart raced. He had escaped. But the fear lingered, a chilling reminder. The next day, he told his story. People listened. Some believed. Most dismissed it. Just another ghost story. But Jack knew the truth. That gas station. It was more than just a place to refuel. It was a place of darkness, of secrets. He never forgot that night. The eerie gas station, the chilling voice, and the ghostly figures, forever etched in his memory.